Florida Congressman Michael Waltz is co-sponsoring a bill that would allow the U.S. Army to help fight the cartels and joins us now. Congressman, thank you for being with us. You know, I have to jump into this because as a former military member, you may be able to answer this question. Now you're in Congress. How would this work with the U.S. military and the Mexican government? Would Mexico push back on the U.S. military in this? How would that look?
Well, we have to realize that these cartels in Mexico have declared war on the United States. They control our border. They are killing tens of thousands of American citizens. And we need to deploy every asset that we have, not just law enforcement, but also military and intelligence, to dismantle them, to disrupt them, and to take them out. Now, I'm not talking about an invasion of Mexico, U.S. military boots on the ground. I'm talking about cyber, intelligence, drones, targeting. We begin disrupting their money, their supply chains, and targeting their leadership, just as we did in Colombia in the 1990s when we took down the Cali and Medellin cartels. We need to take down the Sinaloa and Jalisco cartels. We cannot accept a narco state that is completely ungoverned on our border that's preying on American citizens.
But, Congressman, as you know, the problem runs way deeper than just the cartels. Here's former AG Bill Barr. Listen.
There's another hostage, and that's the Mexican government. The Mexican government is being held hostage by tens of thousands of paramilitary members of terrorist organizations that effectively control Mexico. It's pretty close at this stage to a failed narco state. They can use violence and oceans of cash to corrupt the government. The government has no will, and it doesn't have the ability to deal with the cartels.
Look, this isn't a problem that started with this kidnapping on Friday. This has been going on for a couple of years now. So why isn't Joe Biden and the White House using our economic as well as our military might to force Mexico, the government of Mexico, force their hand, force them to do something, force them to police their own darn country?
Well, you know, again, using what we did with Plan Colombia in the 1990s, originally the Colombian government was not on board. But when they realized that we were going to take action, either with them or without them, they began to work with us and to come along. And I think the Mexican government really has no choice. They don't control their own territory. These groups are more like ISIS than they are the mafia. They have stood firm, these cartels, against the Mexican army, causing over 50 casualties in one battle, shooting up Mexican Air Force aircraft. So, again, we need to begin thinking about it differently. And just as al-Qaeda killed 3,000 Americans with airplanes, these cartels are killing 80,000 Americans a year with poison. And we need to use every asset we can. And to your point on the Biden administration, this bill that I've introduced with Representative Dan Crenshaw would authorize the Pentagon to begin supporting law enforcement with all kinds of military assets, including even satellite imagery, targeting, special operations, whatever we determine is needed. But what we can't do is continue to allow our border to be run and our cities to be destabilized and our neighbor to fall into a failed narco state. Do nothing.
Right. Well, we have to get to this. The White House is deflecting questions after the Wall Street Journal reported that China may be using cranes as potential spying tools. Listen to this.
Well, there were the Chinese spy balloons, and now there are these Chinese spy cranes. The Wall Street Journal is comparing them to Trojan horses in use at 80% of U.S. ports.
So on the cranes, don't have any comment on that specific reporting. I would refer you to the Department of Transportation and the Department of Defense, who've been tasked with Congress to study this particular issue.
Congressman, your thoughts on what you just heard?
Yeah, the spy cranes. Well, look, we have to understand that anything that is made in China can be used, whether it's a computer chip, a cell phone tower, a crane. We can go a sensor. We can go down the list that they will vacuum up data. We are under a tsunami of Chinese espionage. The FBI recently boarded a ship that was bringing in one of these cranes, and reportedly it had various types of sensors and spyware on it. Unfortunately, 80% of our ports are now staffed with cranes. It's one more
scary.
supply chain we have to bring home and
Gotta
make it
run,
America.
Congressman.